Thank you very much, Sister Julia. And I think we met in the last week as well. In that session, we discussed many important basic ideas about political science. So just a short brief review of what we have done in the last week for those who absent, and which is the last week we actually discussed two important things. One is to understand the term politics. Politics, we identified three important meanings are assigned to politics by the political scientist. And one is politics as an art of government, which is one of the oldest meanings. We discuss about that. The second one is it is a socially embedded activity. First meaning of art of government is a perspective coming from political leadership, because those political leaders are actually governing the community. So it comes from that perspective. The second meaning was a socially embedded perspective. We say sometimes that society is engaging in politics, authorizing the power. So politics needs to be seen from the perspective of the society. The third meaning we explored last week is the power. Politics is about just a act of seeking power. So then we discuss about political science as a field of study, and I reminded you all that political science, when we read the definitions, we usually encounter an idea that political science is a study of the state. It's a science of the state, how the organization of the state and the duties of the state as such. So today we are discussing, as I promised you last week, we are discussing one of the important and also a controversial topic, Islam and politics, and a preliminary philosophical inquiry. In this presentation, my objective is to give a broader and a basic overview about the scholarly discussions, evolving scholarly discussions on this very contested idea. And in this presentation, we will cover these four important aspects. One is Islam and politics, mapping the contemporary debate. So I will give an overview about the current dynamics that is out there about this very topic. The second one is secularization thesis and its philosophical premises. So we will discuss about the modern political science and its philosophical premises. Then we will we will move to the idea of Islamic political philosophy, ontological principles. What should be the Islamic principles to develop an Islamic political science. Then finally we will discuss the historical development of Islamic political thought, how politics was conceived throughout the Islamic history by the great Islamic scholars, reflecting the principles that we discuss in the third title. So with that, we conclude our session. And so now, Islam and politics, mapping the contemporary debate. So I am very much aware that this is one of the controversial topics to be discussed. And to discuss this topic, we need so much of different inputs from different disciplines actually. And despite that, just I'm trying to give a brief overview. So you see that when Islam and politics is one of the hottest topics out there today in the world when it comes to the Islam. I found three important reasons for this sensation over this topic in modern, at least in the modern academic settings. One is this Islamic politics debate become very sensational because of the one of the main issues that it deals, which is Islam versus democracy. So most of the scholars are interested in Islamic politics debate, particularly for this issue, whether Islam is compatible with democracy or not. This question has been, scholars have been debating this question for the last almost 2-3 centuries, if I'm not mistaken. Through various concepts like constitutionalism or you name it. But the core idea is whether Islam is compatible with democracy. So modern sensationalization of Islam and politics debate comes from particularly from this particular issue. Why this particular issue has been sensationalized? Because through my readings and through my engagement with this topic, I found there is a Eurocentric element operating behind this question. What is that? Generally, those who debate this or initiated this debate, generally they think that democracy is a product of the Western civilization. So, if the democracy is the product of a Western civilization, then they think that democracy is according to their perspective, one of the progressive ideals to regulate the public affairs in the world. Most civilized way of regulating the public affairs in ever humanity know. These are one of the most civilized mechanisms according to the Eurocentric perspective. So then, if this is a product of the West, then what these scholars argue, then how about the rest? How about the Orientals? How about the other traditional societies? How did they regulate their public affairs? According to this Eurocentric perspective, they argue that there was an Oriental despotism, meaning to say all other traditions and religions, they simply promoted despotism, authoritarianism. So it was the West first articulated a clear, progressive, civilized mechanism which ensures the liberty and freedom for the people in terms of regulating their life. So they conceive there is an inherent conflict between the European product of democracy and the Oriental or despotic political models of the West. So they place democracy as it is defined by the West in the center and demand from the other religious traditional communities to reconcile with it, to show their progress. So from this Eurocentric paradigm, this whole debate comes. This is the Eurocentric paradigm that shapes this whole debate, specifically Islam and democracy. So that is why many, especially who are coming from Orientalist background, they frame this debate as us versus them. Through this narrative, they try to engage with Islam versus democracy debate. You can see this same framing repeatedly being endorsed even by the recent scholars. For example, Samuel Huntington in Clash of Civilization, he repeats the same thing. The West is democratic by nature, and the rest, especially Islam, is authoritarian. So how these two political models going to coexist? According to him, it cannot be. So there will be a eventual clash excuse me, between these two civilizations. So this very Eurocentric paradigm is one of the key factors that makes this Islam and politics, and specifically Islam and democracy debate, more sensationalized an issue, a more sensationalized issue. Despite that argument, these scholars show that Islamic political parties have become mainstream political actors in the Muslim world. Despite they try to argue that Islam is incompatible with democracy, but still Islamic political parties become mainstream and primary actors in the political sphere of in the Muslim world. So now this is also another important dynamics that shapes the Islam and politics debate now. How and why Islamic political parties became main actors. And so now they are trying to explore whether these political parties are reflecting the true spirit of democracy, or they are just trying to use democracy in an instrumental sense, in a procedural sense, just to endorse their own version of authoritarianism, or at least they just use democracy as a vehicle for authoritarianism. So this is another this is another important aspect that this debate is reframed by the Eurocentric political scientist. And again, this debate, Islam and politics and debate, become more controversial in after 9/11. You see that resurgence of extremist movement that actually, the Eurocentric political scientist or Eurocentric political science try to argue, you see that if religion comes to public sphere, this is going to be the end game, violence, killing. So religion needs to be sidelined. So the whole West is liberated from religion. Now you see the Islam resisting that. So you see this is the end consequences of end game of this whole resurgence of religion in the Muslim world. So these are the key three layers that we can argue that contemporary political Islam and politics debate is reframed by the mainstream political science and scientists. So from where this whole framing originates, I argue that it comes from a very basic understanding of, or very concept of, secularization and modernization thesis. This thesis is shaping the whole debate, whether Islam is incompatible with democracy, or whether Islamic political parties or Islamic political actors, or just using Islam for to regulate the public affairs, is sort of an authoritarianism, Islam and violence. These all debates are coming from a particular worldview, which is secularization and modernization thesis. How this thesis operates is very interesting to see. And you say this thesis is originates from a particular conception of human life. Modernization thesis originates in the West after the Enlightenment, and which comes from particular perspective about human being. So with regard to human being, this modernization thesis, or at least secularization thesis, assumes that human beings are ontologically individualistic. And so they say that these political parties, religious parties, are always talk about communitarian interest, so which is against the human ontology for them. They perceive human ontology as individualistic and materialistic, and also they are rational actors. So these are the three important principles that they perceive as the foundations of human being. Then from that understanding, they view the traditions, they view the religions. They think that these religions are right against these three principles. Religions are, while they are considering the individuals, they are communitarian in nature. And traditions are, while they are respecting the material interest, but they are spiritual in its roots. And though they respect reason, but they consider reason to be secondary, but their main source is myths or sort of unscientific revelations, according to them I'm talking. So these three, if we want to, at least in their perspective, true liberation is to liberate human being to reclaim these essences from the grip of religion and tradition. That is the true liberation according to the secularization thesis. So liberation from the religion or tradition is the civilization, is the real entry point into the civilization. And that is what Immanuel Kant and others meant by the real enlightenment, meaning man reclaims his true essence after centuries of years, which was dominated by the according to them, by religion, by mythology. So it needs to be liberated. So man needs to reclaim his essence. That is the true liberation according to the secularization thesis. So then the next one is the embracing the theology of progress. The progress is to see the future, not the past. So I use here theology, meaning progress is considered to be important as theology for them. So once you liberate from religion, it is the first initial step that you make towards the progress. You cannot ensure your progress, you cannot go towards progress unless you are trapped within the religion or within traditions. So if you reclaim your true essence, which is individualistic, materialistic, and rationality, then you liberate yourselves from the tradition and religion. So what happens after this to the religion that was dominating human being, that was shaping human societies for centuries before that? Secularization thesis assumes that religion might encounter three important consequences. So religion faced three important consequences. One is religion might disappear as it was anticipated in the 19th centuries by the Max Weber or Emile Durkheim or Auguste Comte. They perceive that religion will be disappeared once the humanity reclaim its essence, their essence. Or if it escaped from disappearance, if religion escaped from disappearance, then the second option will be privatization of religion, meaning to say, if religion didn't disappear, then at least religion might not become a source to regulate the public sphere. It will be considered to be a private matter of a person. So this is the second option. If it is not disappear, then it will be privatized. Even if the religion resists to be privatized, then the third option, the secularization thesis predict, is to secularize the religion. Meaning to say, you see, what is the secularization of religion? Here I use this term to refer to an idea that religion and its basic fundamentals and its ethical systems and the moral frameworks that religions promote need to be reinterpreted in light of secular modernity, or religion needs to be reconcile, compromise its principles in front of secularized modernity. So secularized modernity will decide how to interpret religious principles. secular modernity will influence the narrative, how and what religious basic fundamentals needs to be understood. So this is the meaning of very term secularization of religion. So sometimes, to an extent, we say that liberal, some argue the liberal Islam as a secularized version of religion. How liberal principles dominate the interpretation of Islam, certain principles of Islam in light of liberal fundamentals. So these are the consequences of religion through this. If we look this whole journey through secularization process, first, humans are individual, materialistic, and rational actors. Then the true human being needs to reclaim their true essence, which is to liberate from religion. Then if you liberate from religion, what happens to religion? Three possibilities: disappear, privatize, or even if it escapes, secularize the religion. So this is a three outcome of secularization process with regard to the religion. So I developed this scheme because to a secularized paradigm, they perceive religion, Islam, and politics debate as an anomaly. Why? And they perceive the revival or the mainstreaming of Islamic political parties or political parties with reference to Islam, or the debate to reframe the public policies in light of Islam as an anomaly. Why? Because usually modernization theses predict if a community become modernized, religion needs to be sidelined. That is the logical consequence. How a community can be modernized, meaning to say adopt modern political systems and concepts while being religious. This is an irony. This is an anomaly for secularization and modernization theses. So this anxiety, how this anomaly originates, why this anomaly happens, is the fundamental logic driving the question of Islam and politics in the Western academia. So that anomaly actually is an anomaly when we look at the debate and Islam's presence in the public sphere from the secularization or the modernization thesis perspective. So, but Islam resists this secularization narrative fundamentally and rejects that. Why? Because Islamic political scientists and scholars, they argue that Islam cannot be secularized or privatized, or Muslims cannot develop a political science as it is developed in the West. They need a different scheme. They argue based on three important principles. The first is human responsibility and accountability paradigm. The second one is ummatic paradigm. The third one is comprehensiveness of the Islam. Based on these three principles, Islamic political scientists refute or reject the secularization thesis. Meaning to say, what I am meaning in the least extent is that if you want to modernize, you need to sideline the religion. Islamic political scientists say this is an anomaly, meaning to say this secular paradigm is an anomaly from the Islamic perspective. So why it is an anomaly for Muslim to sideline religion when we want to modernize? Because based on three principles. The first is the human responsibility and accountability paradigm. What does it mean? What I am meaning by saying this? In Islam, we all know that each human being is created as Khalifa of the God Almighty Allah. So the idea of Khalifa is as it is as it is as it is described in the Quran, as it is detailed in the Quran, that says the human beings are very God-centric. They are agents of the God. They are vicegerents of the God. So each Muslim Islamic worldview is shaped by this very fundamental conception. And so idea of Khalifa, as Quran says, we all know that Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah that remember when your Lord said to the angels, I am going to place a successive human authority on earth, meaning to say humans are authorized by the God to represent him in the world. So this ayah very much encapsulating the idea of Islamic concept of vicegerency, human vicegerency. So this concept connect human beings with the God. So this very concept rejects the idea of a secularization thesis that is very much the basis of contemporary political science. And so Islamic ontological principles or human ontology is that it says that human essence is very much connected to the God. The second important principles with regard to human responsibility and accountability is that covenant between the God and the man, which is also described in the Quran as God asked that, am I your Lord? And then the humanity responded, yes, you are, we testify. Then this idea also very much present in the Quran holistically describe the discussion between the humanity and the God even prior to the coming into this world. So this covenant aspect and the idea of Khalifa, all these reject very basic premises of modern political science, which is based on secularization thesis, which argue that if you modernize, if you become rational, you sideline your religion. And this principle, human responsibility, accountability paradigm, argue otherwise, that humans actually, from the Islamic perspective, the reasonability, rationality, all come from all being considered as a gift of God to regulate the human affairs. So when we talk about human affairs, obviously we cannot disregard politics. It's also included in human affairs. So being Khalifa, the human being for Muslims are requested to reflect expectations of the God in engaging with politics. So politics cannot be sidelined. And the third important idea of human accountability and responsibility paradigm is the concept of ibadah. Quran says that I did not create jinn or humans except to worship me. So this concept basically says that refute the idea of privatization of religion. So for a Muslim, the whole life is an ibadah, including his economic, personal, private, political, social life. This idea of ibadah is comprehensive. So privatization of religion, as it is prescribed by the secularization thesis, is a very much go against the spirit of this Quranic concept. Then Quran says about the accountability that human being is there, because human beings are accountable in front of God in the day of judgment for all their activities, regardless of which kind of activity he involves in. So Quran says, did you then think that we had created you without purpose and that you would never be returned to us? So in Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse 115. So there will be accountability for human being of their actions. This is also one of the key components of Islamic worldview that is shaping Islamic politics, that we are accountable in front of God. So we need to be we need to reflect Islamic principles in political sphere. So again, these ideas, concept of ibadah, concept of accountability, concept of khalifa, and also concept of uh, covenant between the God and the man. These all concepts refute the very idea of secularization thesis, that we need to disregard religion if we want to become modernized. This, if even if this is perceived to be an anomaly by secularization thesis, for Islamic worldview, this is not an anomaly. That is the principle. To see politics differently from religion is the anomaly, according to the Quranic concept. And so the second important paradigm that Islamic political science can be developed is an ummatic paradigm. So why this paradigm is important? Modern secularization thesis assumes that humans are individuals. Humans are individuals. At least the liberal theory assumes that humans are individuals. So if human as an individual, meaning to say, then who is community? According to the secularization modernization thesis, that there is no such thing called community. Community is just the collection of individuals. That's all. When we talk about community's interest, the idea of community interest for secularism is that it's just an aggregate interest of the individuals who live within a particular locality. That's that communist interest. But Islam rejects this very concept. Islam says there is something called Muslim community, the Ummah. The Ummah, or the Muslim community, is not just the collection of individual Muslims, as many many scholars who think from secularization thesis assumes. Muslim community is not just a collection of individuals, rather they have specific ontological existence. So Muslim Ummah is a separate kind of entity. There is something called Islamic Ummah. So Quran conceptualize this idea. Quranic discourse very much support this idea. The Quran says you are the best community that has been raised up for mankind. So this Quranic verse, except there is a notion called Muslim Ummah, ummatic paradigm. And also Quran says, hold firmly to the rope of Allah and altogether do not become divided. So Quran asks Muslims not to become divided, be united. And also Quranic verse says the believers are nothing but brothers, therefore make peace between your brethren. So these all Quranic verses endorse a very important principle of Muslim ummatic paradigm, or Islamic ummatic paradigm, or ummatic paradigm. So Muslim Ummah is not just a collection of individual Muslims. Yes, we are accountable to the God being individuals, but Islamic life is shaped by a community of Muslims. So we need to strike a balance between our individuality and our communitarian responsibilities. This is the ummatic paradigm is all about. So this very paradigm also need to be considered in developing Islamic political theory, why contemporary secularization thesis is right opposite to this. That argues that we need to develop political theories considering people as individuals, considering human ontology as individualistic. So we see so much of discussion about human rights and freedom and individuality, though we don't reject those things, but we Islam and Muslims have a different understanding of human ontology. While we are respecting individuality, we have a broader paradigm of ummah where we have different duties as ummah to do in this world. So Islamic political theory needs to consider this aspect as well. According to the Islamic political scientist, the third important aspect is the comprehensiveness of the Islam, which is very much discussed in the literatures. I don't think that I need I don't need to add any further additions to this debate. Quran directly says that do not take some parts of the religion and reject the rest. So Islam asks Muslims to accept Islam as a whole and implement Islam as a whole. So this comprehensiveness of Islam and also ummatic paradigm and thirdly the accountability and responsibility paradigm, these three Quranic paradigms together need to be considered as the foundations of Islamic political philosophy. Why these paradigms need is to be taken seriously? Because if we want to develop an alternative Islamic political philosophy or political science, these principles give us a vision how we can develop it, because these three important principles go right against the contemporary secularization thesis. And so if we reflect upon our classical Islamic political thought, we can clearly see how these three paradigms been incorporated in the classical theories of Islamic politics. So when we read Islamic classical political works, we can easily deduct three important centers, or at least three important aspects that those aspects are very interdependent in developing Islamic political thought. One is the office of the Caliph and the Ummatic paradigm, Muslim Ummah. They actually appoint Caliph, and the Caliph is responsible for application of Sharia. These are the three important concepts in classical Islamic political thought. So you can see that three paradigms of that three principles that we discussed were well incorporated in these three entities. So here politics, religion play a key role in regulating the public life of Muslims. So the Caliph, according to the classical Islamic political theory, is not only just a secular administrator, rather he is responsible for the very existence of religion, and he is responsible for the protection of religion in classical Islamic political thought. But very interestingly, though he is responsible for the application of the Sharia or the protection of the Sharia in the public life, he is not an agent of a God, representative of the God, or he did not get his power, authority from the God. Rather, Muslim Ummah is the one that transfer the authority to the Caliph. So the Caliph is mere a representative of the Ummah. Ummah is the core. Ummah is the foundation. Then the Ummah appoint their representative, and the representative is responsible for the protection of the religion. So this is the core three principles of classical Islamic political philosophy. So this classical Islamic political philosophy also very much refute the idea of secularization, or this classical political theory gives us a glimpse of an idea how Islam operated throughout the centuries. So finally, I would like to remind few things about how this political theory was actually conceptualized by the leading Islamic thinkers in the past. Imam Taftazani, who elaborated the meaning of this political system. He says that there is a consensus that installing an imam, meaning say the political system, is an obligation. The disagreement is on whether the obligation upon the God or upon the creation by revelational evidence or rational. In our school, he comes from an Ash'ari Ash'ari school. He says our school holds that is an obligation upon the creation through revelation. As Prophet said, whoever dies without knowing the Imam of his time dies in pre-Islamic ignorance, which is why the Ummah made the installing of Imam their utmost concern even before his burial. So it should be after the death of every Imam, as many obligations of Sharia depend on him. You see that here he is encapsulating the idea that Islamic political system is very much religious, meaning to say it is one of the primary duties of Islamic political science is to implement the religion. So it's fundamental to the Islamic political science, and to protect the religion is one of the primary duties of Islamic political system. The same thing can be said with regard to the Imam Ibn Khaldun. He also saying that appointing the leader is an obligatory. Its mandatory nature is known through revealed law by consensus of the companions and the generation of the followers. It is also because the companions of the Prophet hastened upon his death to pledge allegiance and submit consideration of their affairs to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And it was thus every age and thereafter the matter was established as consensus, indicating the obligation of the appointed leader. And finally, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah also said, it must be known that the governmental authority of the people's affairs is one of the greatest obligation of the religion, and in fact the religion cannot be established without it. For the well-being of the children of the Adam cannot be secured except by their coming together to fulfill each other's needs. So finally, I would like to conclude by emphasizing three important aspects that Islamic worldview opposes and denies the very essence of secularization and modernization thesis. So according to Islamic worldview, this thesis is an anomaly, and this thesis cannot be accepted from the standpoint of Islamic worldview. The second important principle is Islamic philosophy stems from the fundamental ontological principles such as human vicegerency. The final point that I would like to make is Islamic public sphere is a logical consequences of Islamic world view. So these are the three short description of the basic philosophical inquiry about Islam and politics. I would like to open up the floor for question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for the sharing session today, and very interesting, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. So we have in the chat box we have question, Doctor.
Okay, I'm seeing. Is there any question?
From Sister Wafa, I think.
Okay.
Since all the scores are about Islamic perspective, then why are the term verse is used instead of ayah, God instead of Allah? Okay.
I couldn't trace the question clearly. There is politics in Islam, but party want politics. Yeah, that's very important. And so I am not talking about Islamic political parties, but I am just touching upon the phenomenon that the mainstreaming of Islamic political parties is partly a reason for this debate. That's what I am touching upon when we involve in the contemporary discussions on Islam and politics. The questions you will encounter questions coming from that particular aspect, Islamic political parties. So this is one of the reasons, because according to the Western secular paradigm, that is what I'm repeatedly saying, that being thinking about religion in the public sphere is an anomaly for secularization thesis. So from that Eurocentric perspective, this whole debate is framed. So we need to be very careful in terms of exploring these debates in the mainstream academia. Why do Westerners always against teaching of Islam and attack Muslims that are against the ideas? So I think, what's your opinion, Doc? Some are separate Islam and politics. The main point is that Islam and politics is contemporary debate is very much coming from, being framed at least from the Eurocentric paradigm. So they see, they argue that they think that Islam somehow escaped from secularization. So they need to at least the escape secularization in the sense that all the ideologies and all the other traditions have become secularized, meaning to say they just compromise with secularism. Now secularism is dominating the public affairs, and religion and traditions being marginalized. But this Eurocentric perspective assume that Islam somehow escaped from this process. So how did that happen? Why did that happen? And how we can re-secularize it? So this is a whole paradigm shaping the contemporary discussion. And thank you very much for your questions. I think we can discuss in the next class as well, since we are running out of time. Sister Juwele, what do you think? We can take more questions?
I think we allow to ask by open mic direct, Doctor, for one question only.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. From brother, there's a brother.
Anyone who can ask directly? Yeah.
No. You can unmute yourself, brother.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for this interesting. So what I would like to ask, because I was not hearing very well the explanation, if democracy match with Islam, is that question that I want to have more explanation about. If it's match with democracy or not.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Good question. Whether Islam is compatible with democracy is not. I want to, rather than giving an exclusive answer whether this is compatible or not, I'm just trying to give a framework how we can approach this debate. So I would say that it depends on what you understand, what we understand at least by the term democracy. And so there are different versions of democracy. So if it assumes democracy as a philosophy, yes, Islam is incompatible with that philosophy. Being just democracy is just as we all know, it's people have the sovereignty in the philosophical democracy. So people have the right to do whatever they want to do. This is very much against Islam, spirit of the Islam. But democracy as a procedure, democracy as an instrument, yes, we can adopt that. And but yet again, when we talk like this, that we only accept democracy as a procedure, not as an idea, then the third question comes in: how we are going to apply this in the contemporary multicultural or multi-religious societies. So this is again another debate that we need to carefully navigate in. So I think with Islam and democracy, if we are compatible, uncompatible, it depends on what type of democracy we we talk about, whether it's philosophical aspect of democracy or just a procedural aspect. When it's come to the procedural aspect, yes, obviously we don't have any problem with that. Islamic worldview doesn't have any problem with that. But if you talk about philosophical aspect, yeah, we need to be, there are some disagreements. We need to carefully evaluate that.
جزيلا حياكم الله.